the bustling metropolis of Lagos, where ancient traditions danced uneasily with modern ambitions, Olayinka Adeleke stood as a testament to success. The young CEO's office perched high in a glass tower that pierced the sky like a spear, overlooking the lagoon that gave the city its name. At 35, he had everything a man could desire, or so it seemed to those who only saw the surface of his life. The empire he commanded had been built by his father, Old Man Adeleke, whose presence still lingered in the company's hallways 3 years after his passing. The elder Adeleke had started with a single shop selling automobile parts and transformed it into a conglomerate that spread across West Africa like branches of an iroko tree. When he died, Olayinka inherited not just his father's wealth, but also his reputation for excellence, and unfortunately, his weakness for women. The day Olayinka met Aisha Ibrahim at the annual Lagos Charity Gala, the air was thick with possibility. She stood out among the crowd, not just for her beauty, which was considerable, but for the sharp intelligence that flashed in her eyes as she challenged his views on market economics. Her fitted red dress was elegant rather than revealing, and her natural hair was styled in a sophisticated crown of twists. "I believe your company's expansion into Ghana is premature," she said, sipping champagne. "The market indicators suggest waiting another fiscal quarter." Her voice carried the refined accent of an international education, yet retained the warm tones of her northern Nigerian upbringing. Olayinka was captivated. Unlike the women who usually surrounded him, giggling at his jokes and agreeing with his every word, Aisha showed no interest in flattering his ego. As a financial analyst at a competing firm, she saw him as an equal, not a meal ticket. Their courtship was swift but not rushed, like a river finding its natural course. Within 6 months, they were married in a ceremony that combined Muslim and Christian traditions, reflecting both their backgrounds. The celebration lasted 3 days, and people said it rivaled any royal wedding in extravagance. The guest list read like a who's who of Nigerian society, and the gifts alone could have funded a small business. But beneath the glittering surface of their union, a darkness lurked. Olayinka's appetite for other women didn't diminish with marriage. If anything, his wealth and position made it easier to indulge his desires. Beautiful women seemed to materialize wherever he went, at business meetings, social functions, even his gym. And like his father before him, he lacked the strength to resist their advances. For 3 years, Aisha endured the humiliation of being the wife everyone pitied. Her friends would fall silent when she entered a room, their conversations about Olayinka's latest indiscretion dying on their lips. The signs were impossible to ignore. Lipstick stains on his shirts, mysterious hotel charges on their joint credit card, the scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his suits. The pain of his infidelity was compounded by their inability to conceive a child. Month after month, Aisha's hopes would rise and fall like the tide. The doctors found no medical reason for their childlessness. Both she and Olayinka were perfectly healthy. Some whispered that it was a curse, punishment for marrying across tribal lines. Others suggested it was divine retribution for Olayinka's wandering ways. Aisha's friend Amara Okafor became her sanctuary during these troubled times. Amara was a widow whose husband had died under mysterious circumstances 2 years into their marriage, leaving her wealthy but alone. Unlike Aisha's other friends, Amara never offered empty platitudes or useless advice. One humid afternoon, as they sat in Amara's air-conditioned living room sharing pepper soup and roasted yams, Amara finally broke her silence on the subject of Olayinka's infidelity. "My sister," she said, stirring her soup thoughtfully, "I see how you suffer. But what if I told you there was a way to bind your husband's heart to yours forever?" Aisha laughed bitterly. "I've tried everything, Amara. I've changed my appearance, learned new things in the bedroom, even consulted marriage counselors. Nothing works." Amara leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Those are modern solutions to an ancient problem. Our grandmothers knew secrets that this generation has forgotten. Before my husband died, he was the most faithful man in Lagos. Would you like to know why? The Babalawo's compound lay in a part of Lagos that seemed to exist outside of time. Here, the paved roads gave way to dirt paths, and the air was thick with the smell of herbs and spiritual workings. Ancient trees stood guard over the compound, their branches reaching toward the sky like gnarled fingers. Aisha's Western education and Muslim upbringing screamed at her to turn back, but desperation drove her forward. Amara walked beside her with the confidence of someone who had traveled this path before. The Babalawo himself was not what Aisha expected. Instead of an old man in traditional garb, she found a middle-aged man wearing a crisp white kaftan and gold-rimmed glasses. His consultation room was clean and orderly, with certificates from various traditional healing associations hanging on the walls alongside masks and dried herbs. "Your husband's spirit is like a butterfly," the Babalawo said after casting his cowrie shells. "It lands here and there, tasting many flowers, but I can help you clip its wings." He spoke perfect English, his voice carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. He explained the ritual to her in detail. It would require a special calabash, blessed under a full moon, and a monthly ceremony that must never be broken. The consequences of missing even 1 month would be severe. "But understand this," he warned, his eyes suddenly sharp behind his glasses. "What we bind can never be unbound. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Aisha hesitated only briefly before nodding. The Babalawo named his price, a sum that would have shocked her if she hadn't been so desperate. As she counted out the crisp naira notes, he prepared her calabash, chanting in a language she didn't understand. The changes in Olayinka were subtle at first. He began coming home earlier from work. His phone calls became less furtive. The hotel charges disappeared from their credit card statements. By the 3rd month, he was a different man entirely. "My love," he would say, bringing her breakfast in bed. "What would you like to do today?" The pet names he had abandoned years ago returned to his vocabulary. He showered her with gifts, not out of guilt as before, but from what seemed like genuine affection. Their home, once cold with unspoken accusations, warmed with laughter and love. Olayinka began taking her on surprise weekend trips, just as he had during their courtship. They would walk hand in hand along the beaches of Lagos, planning their future together. In the 6th month, Aisha discovered she was pregnant. The joy she felt was beyond anything she had ever experienced. Surely, she thought, this was a sign from Allah that what she had done was right. The baby would seal their happiness forever. But the Babalawo's warning haunted her dreams. How could she continue the monthly ritual during pregnancy? Surely the blessing of a child would override any curse. In her heart, she knew she was gambling with forces she didn't understand, but the prospect of motherhood made her reckless with hope. The change in Olayinka began during Aisha's 2nd month of pregnancy. It started with small things: irritation at the sound of her morning sickness, complaints about her growing appetite. By the 3rd month, his temper had become explosive. The first time he hit her, they were arguing about his late nights at work, which had resumed with a vengeance. The slap echoed through their bedroom like a thunderclap. Both of them froze in shock. Olayinka immediately apologized, crying and swearing it would never happen again. But it did happen again. And again. Each time, the violence escalated. Aisha hid her bruises under expensive makeup and long-sleeved clothing. She stopped visiting Amara, afraid her friend would see what was happening. When she tried calling the Babalawo, his number was disconnected. The pregnancy became difficult. Aisha developed complications that confined her to bed rest. Olayinka's rage seemed to grow with her belly, as if the child inside her was feeding his darkness. One terrible night, after a particularly violent episode, Aisha felt a sharp pain and saw blood. The hospital staff's faces were grim as they delivered the news. She had lost the baby. Olayinka didn't even come to the hospital. When she returned home, weak and heartbroken, she found him with another woman in their bed. Desperate to reclaim what she had lost, Aisha decided to resume the ritual. She waited until her cycle returned, gathering her supplies with trembling hands. The calabash, hidden away during her pregnancy, felt heavier than before. That fateful evening, the air was thick with approaching rain. Thunder rolled in the distance as Aisha began her preparation in the kitchen. She was so focused on her task that she didn't hear Olayinka's car in the driveway, didn't register the sound of his footsteps until it was too late. The look in his eyes when he saw what she was doing would haunt her final moments. Recognition, disgust, and rage transformed his handsome face into something inhuman. The kitchen knife glinted in the fluorescent light as he grabbed it. "So this is how you did it," he snarled, advancing toward her. "This is how you tried to control me?" Aisha backed away, her hands raised in supplication. "Please, my love, let me explain." But there was no explanation that could bridge the chasm between them. The knife plunged once, twice, 3 times. Aisha's last thought was of how the blood spreading across her wrapper looked like the roses Olayinka had given her on their wedding day. The security guard found them there, Olayinka cradling Aisha's body, rocking back and forth, completely lost to madness. The police came, and justice was swift. Olayinka Adeleke, once the pride of Lagos Business Society, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Amara vanished from Lagos, leaving only whispers behind. Some said she had been an agent of darkness all along, seeking to destroy happy marriages out of bitterness for her own loss. The Babalawo's compound was found abandoned, with only the lingering scent of herbs and broken dreams. Our elders say that a bird that flies off the earth and lands on an anthill is still on the ground. No matter how high we climb in life, we must remember our connection to the earth and its ancient wisdom. But they also warn that not all ancient paths should be followed, for some led only to destruction. This tale teaches us many things: that love forced is no love at all, that desperation can blind us to the dangers lurking in seemingly simple solutions, and that the price of tampering with the natural order is often paid in blood. In the markets and parlors of Lagos, people still speak in hushed tones about the Adeleke tragedy. It serves as a warning to young couples that the foundation of marriage must be built on trust and understanding, not on charms and dark magic. For as our ancestors knew, what comes through dubious means never lasts. Like a house built in the rainy season, it will eventually wash away. Let those who hear this tale remember, true love, like a mighty Iroko tree, must grow naturally, its roots deep in the soil of respect and trust. No amount of magic can create what the heart does not freely give.